Alrighty. So, you guys know this topic is a personal favorite of mine. I don't really care for the direction that we've been driving U.S. schools. Excuse me. My background on this particular topic is I have a graduate degree in education. And my problem is, I was expected to start teaching kids the same way that I had learned 20 years prior or 15 years prior. There was absolutely no evolution, adaptation. Wow, excuse me. There was nothing incorporating the new technologies. Now, a little humor for people so that they can place the time, the face, the date, the age. I remember when Windows came out with a graphical user interface. Like, that happened in my lifetime. My first major paper in grade school was typed on a typewriter, not even a word processor. It was typed on a typewriter. We had computer class in 7th and 8th grade, and it was learning BASIC. So I was kind of amazed, like, as I went into high school, we had Windows, like, I think 3.1 and then 3.11 and then Windows 95. I took a class using AutoCAD. So I was really enthusiastic about growing up and seeing all this technology. And then I got to college and it was still more of the same. Teacher didn't care if the paper was typed with a typewriter, didn't care if it was typed with a word processor. Microsoft Word was amazing, contributed to the downfall of many a college student's failure on a paper because the grammar check, if you remember the grammar check on early versions of Word, wasn't great. A lot of college students became dependent on that grammar check. And then, I remember amazing things happening on the internet, like cheathouse.com, where you could get a paper. If you needed a paper on Romeo and Juliet or Hamlet or something other than Shakespeare, you could go and get it. And I said, wow, times are changing, man. Times are radically changing. And that, for me, was 20 years ago. When I grabbed my little notebook and I started thinking about that was 20 years ago. And it was funny, as I was helping my 9-year-old daughter with her math homework the other day, and I've helped the teenager with her math homework over the years. And we've decided that we're going to do things like Common Core because we somehow think that making things more complicated is the answer. And the more I sit, the more I think about it. I was in school at 7:30, right? I was butt in seat at 7:30 in the morning. And I got out at 2:30, which, different age, different era. But my question is, why is the class day getting shorter? Why are we shortening the school day? Clearly, we know the results. We know that the average American is graduating from high school, which is 12th grade, unable to read at the 12th grade level. I mean, you can't dispute these. These are known facts. We see the standardized test results. We see the ACT, the SAT. Later on, we can cross-compare those to like the LSAT and the GRE. People aren't getting smarter. There should be no reason why in a society as blessed as the United States, school reform shouldn't be happening left, right, and center. I remember Arnie Duncan, who was the superintendent of schools for Chicago, got made the Secretary of Education. You had a school system that was completely failing, and you decided to make that person in charge of all the schools. They couldn't even fix their own school district. So my question is, why do we still have a school day that's 8 hours? Or less than 8 hours. And in most cases, the school day is less than 8 hours. What are we preparing kids for? I mean, we used to have 8-hour school days because we used to have a very, very rugged structure. And for those of you that don't know this, a lot of the U.S. school reform was based on the Prussian school reform, where we wanted to make sure that all of the people that went to school were given a basic education so that they could go into the workforce. For those of you that don't know this, why the 42 to 48 minute class cycle? If you do your research, you do your homework, the 42 to 48 minute class cycle varied from region to region because it aligned with the local factory. What was the local factory's cycle time? Did they work on a did they work on a 42-minute cycle? Did they work on a 48-minute cycle? What did they work on? And that's why a lot of the schools had that cycle time, because all these kids would go to school and then 90% of them would go to the local factory. 8 hours as in 8 times 45 minutes. Yeah, that's the problem. We say it's an 8-hour school day, right? But then what we end up doing is we chop that down to about 6 hours. 6 hours of lunch and 3 recesses. I don't understand why we're not looking at all these other educational research that does it better and adjusting. A 9-to-5 job, but that has breaks. You're right. But you get 2 15-minute breaks and a 30-minute lunch. That's not how we have the school. That is not how we have the school day structured. And honestly, we shouldn't have kids going to school 9 to 5, because the kids should be at school before the parents have to go to work. And then the kids should be getting off right around when the parents are getting done, or the older kids can walk home. There's a lot of structure. There's a lot of things you can do. But I still don't understand at a core value, having a master's in education, I still don't understand why in 20 years post my schooling, we haven't changed to adapt things like Khan Academy, the Montessori method, right? In Germany, you usually have 6 by 45 minutes before 9th grade. You have 8 by 45 minutes at most, one time a week. Yeah, I can't, I don't know the foreign school systems or why they do what they do, because your countries are older than the United States. So I understand that the older a country is, the more ingrained some things are. Our country no longer runs on manufacturing. The United States no longer runs on manufacturing. We do very little production in this country overall. In the grand scheme of our gross domestic production, how we generate our wealth, very little of that is on the manufacturing cycle. Yet we still run the schools preparing kids to go into the factories. What do? We still sit kids in rows. We sit them in, 5 rows, or 5 columns, 5 rows, 25 kids. 6 columns, 5 rows. Now you got 30 kids. And they sit in rows because that got them used to having people to their left and their right, because that's how it was going to be in the factory system. The sad part is the factory system that the minimal manufacturing we have in the United States has changed to a point where we don't even have that system anymore, but the schools haven't adapted. I think part of it is that everyone is resistant to change. And one of the big things that I'm going to say about the school system is we have the wrong people teaching our children. We have the wrong people teaching our children. You say, I can't remember my secondary school start and end, but we had 5 lessons at an hour minus travel time each. PE was midday for some reason. There was probably a reason. Why do I say we have the wrong people teaching our children? I have a degree in social studies. Well, I have a teaching certificate for social studies. That allows me to teach U.S. history, world history, civics, and government. I also have endorsements in psychology, sociology, cultural anthropology, and economics. So I can teach upwards of 8 classes, but I don't coach. And because I don't coach, if I decided to go back to teaching, it would be very hard for me to get a job teaching because I don't coach. Social studies jobs go to the coaches. I've seen this at the schools I've worked at, the schools I've attended. I see it at the schools that my children go to. The reason why coaches are social studies teachers is because it's literally 3 more classes. Because in order to be a teacher in my state, everybody needs to take the Illinois government understanding, and then a basic teaching certificate has on it U.S. history and world history. I'm sorry, 2 parts of U.S. history or 2 parts of world history, some amount of social studies, some amount of humanities. So really, the average coach only has to go and take geography. And then they can teach, and then they can get a job. I know this is going to sound pretty radical, but I think that high school sports are an infection in this country where we're worried more about the kids' 1 in 1 million chance of making it to the pros. And then we worry about making sure these kids have a good education. I think we have the wrong people. Also, it's weird because I'm not just talking about reforming grade school, elementary school, middle school, high school. I want to talk about reforming college as well, and that's going to get factored in here. But we've turned all of our high schools into college prep schools. Whatever happened to vocational education, right? So the reason was most likely so all those years could do PE that day. Yeah, it wasn't good for every lesson that was after PE for the day. Yeah, okay, so just to diverge off onto the PE thing, I think that every kid needs to have physical education. But I think that you need to change the way PE is done. And although the military is not a good way to look at a lot of things, the military does do its physical training very well. It's usually the first thing in the day or it's the last thing in the day. I think high schools need to adapt to this, but I think physical education needs to grow beyond just going to gym and running around the track or playing basketball or playing badminton. I think what they should do is they should have staggered starts. The freshmen should start and go to PT and then shower. The sophomores should start 45 minutes to an hour after the freshmen. They should do PT or PE and then go to their classes. And at the end of the day, the seniors should do PT, PE, and leave. And the juniors should then do PE and leave. And the only thing you have after PE for the seniors, those that have to ride the bus, is study hall. There should be no education for the older students after their physical workout. But what about the PE teachers? What are they going to do for 2nd through 7th period? They're going to teach health. They're going to teach first aid. They're going to teach nutrition, and not some passing shine them on, not really care. I'm talking about really digging into making sure that these kids can do self-aid and buddy care. How about we talk about recognizing major mental illnesses? But what if we taught the next generation of high school kids how to recognize depression, bipolar, ADHD, anxiety? What's anxiety? What are some methods for countering anxiety? What are some methods that you can use to self-help, self-improvement? Who are good people to read about self-help? Who are bad people to read about self-help? Where are good sources to get self-help? Where are bad sources to get self-help? I think a class on that would be more valuable to kids than a lot of the junk we're pushing down students' throats. But high schools won't adapt because colleges won't adapt. My website designer, I was asking him how many math classes he has left. He has like 7 math classes left in his degree. His degree is not in mathematics. I don't think you should be taking 7 math classes at the college university level unless your degree is going to be in math. I understand that 150 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 500 years ago, a college degree made you a cosmopolitan. It gave you a cosmopolitan view of the world. It made you worldly. You knew a little bit about history. You knew a little bit about philosophy. You knew a little bit about humanities. Why does a kid who knows for a fact that he wants to be a lawyer have to take humanities. I could see if you want him to take morals, ethics, classes that are going to make him a better lawyer overall, a better member of society, art appreciation, art history, women's studies. Women's studies, by the way, is never about what people think women's studies is going to be on. I'm concerned because colleges just want your money. I would love to see not-for-profit colleges. I would love to see colleges that actually cared about making sure that the people that come out of the college can do the job that they were assigned to do. I look at my college transcripts. I have a lot of classes I didn't need. I did not need biology. I didn't need it. What does a social studies major need biology for? Now, I know what some people are going to say. They're going to say you go to college to get a worldly education so that you can be exposed to the things that you might like that you don't necessarily know. That's fine. But then those people want to do a degree in general studies. I have met tons of people in college that they knew exactly what they wanted to do and they used to complain about all the fluff. But the thing is that we make every kid feel bad if they're not in the college prep track. Kid's not going to go to college. We make them feel bad. What about vocational education? What about trade schools? What about the fact that the teacher uses the threat that if you don't do well in school, you're going to end up as the garbage man? But the garbage man makes twice as much as the average teacher. What about the fact that there are people who go to vocational schools out of high school? They go to the local carpenter school, the local trade school, plumbing, HVAC, electrical. And within 2 years, they're making more money a year than the teachers that taught them. The teachers that taught them and made them feel bad and looked down upon them and ridiculed them because they weren't headed to a university. I'll tell you right now, at the end of the day, if my neighbors had a pipe burst in their ceiling, and if she didn't know and I didn't know how to shut the water off to their house, that would have been hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage. The way the water was coming down, it was going to destroy the house. The plumbers that came out, they had to send 3 vans of plumbers to deal with it. Multiple $1,000 bills. I didn't see any history majors there. I didn't see any mathematicians there. When you have a problem with the plumbing, who do you need? A plumber. I don't know why we're still teaching high school in such a way where we make kids take 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of science, 2 years of history. Why are we still doing that? Are there some kids that need that? Absolutely. But we make kids take 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of science, 2 years of history. But we do not require them to take economics. We do not require them to take personal finance. We do not require them to take health. And as I've already commented on, I mean real health. I mean all those things I talked about. Actual taking nutrition. Actual taking first aid, self-aid, buddy care, CPR. I think every high school student that comes out of... I think every kid that leaves a high school should be CPR and first aid certified. Critical thinking. We don't teach classes on critical thinking in the high schools. Billy the Motorhead, and you all know Billy the Motorhead. I don't care what part of the world you're in. I don't care what school you went to. You knew Billy the Motorhead. Billy the Motorhead was the high school kid that didn't do anything official at school. He wasn't on any teams. He wasn't in any sports. He wasn't in any activities. But he was the guy that had a toolbox in his trunk. And if you were nice to him and your car wouldn't start, he could probably get it started for you. He doesn't need Shakespeare. Billy the Motorhead does not care about Twelfth Night, Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Macbeth. He doesn't care. What he cares about is either having a class at his high school or being released from his high school and allowed to go to the local community college where he can take advanced automotive technologies so he can learn how to run diagnostics with a computer. Because your car right now, your automobile, I would venture a guess, I don't know how many people are watching. We've got about 8 people watching between Twitch and YouTube. I would say out of the 8 people here, 7 of you have cars that can be shut down remotely with a computer patch. And then you'd have no idea. We've put so many computers in cars. My Dodge Journey has 20 computers in it. I want to say that again. My Dodge Journey has 20 computers in it. I don't know why my vehicle needs 20 computers. All I know is that means when it breaks, it's expensive. What's this going to cost me? It's like the scene in The Mask. There's no price down there. Oh, there will be. We're still teaching math in high schools because math somehow teaches us to think critically. But colleges now have classes called critical thought. So if high schools are designed to be college prep schools, then why don't we move some of the college curriculum down into the high schools so that kids can learn to think critically without feeling bad about themselves? Because let's be honest, most kids hate math. And we're going to talk about why most kids hate math in a minute. Because, I've been out of high school for about 27 years now. Been out of high school for about 27 years. And I have never once figured out the height of a flagpole by measuring its shadow and using the Pythagorean theorem. I can't understand the idea of a 9-month school year. If school is supposed to prepare you for life, other than a farmer who still works all year round, but they have a big chunk of they have downtime during the non-harvest, non-planting seasons. And other than a teacher, who gets 3 months off for the summer? Because the last time I had 3 months off in the summer was when I was a teacher. Kids should be in school year round. And there should be occasional breaks. It doesn't have to be school year round. It doesn't have to be 9 to 5 classrooms. You could do enrichment programs. You could do stuff where kids get to learn all the things we want them to learn, but we do it in a more forgiving manner. I think a semester should be 8 weeks long. And then 4 semesters a year would be 32 weeks. Each quarter of the year would be 8 weeks plus 4 weeks of enrichment. And when a holiday comes up, we make sure that we line out the school year, because it's not like these holidays are going to just appear. Holidays don't sneak up on us. I mean, sometimes the US government adds in a new federal holiday. Fine. But for the most part, we know Christmas is always going to be the 3rd week of December, going into the 4th week of December. So guess what? We align our semester, we align our school year so that the Christmas holiday falls into one of the enrichment periods. And then we just say, okay, there's no enrichment this week. Spend time with your family. We do the same thing. If we have to still have spring breaks, which I don't know why we still need to have spring breaks. I understood why Catholic schools had spring breaks. Catholic schools had spring breaks because it was the celebration of Easter, and it was what it was. I dislike pure math and algebra and stuff because I like applied math. I got used to the Pythagorean theorem to know that going diagonal is shorter than 2 straights, deciding which path to go to a new destination. I know that doesn't need the formula. It's the same in principle. Here's the thing. Oh, what's up, Lord Lard? What's up with you? Here's the thing, though. Do I need to spend 3 weeks on the Pythagorean theorem, or can I tell you that a diagonal is always going to be shorter than going the length and then the width? I can teach kids the logical part of it, and then guess what? If the kids want to know why, then we can teach the Pythagorean theorem in one of those enrichment periods. The kids that don't want to know why, making the kids. There we go. New follower. Look at that. Making the kids learn something, right? Making the kids learn something that they don't want to learn isn't good education. Because what are they getting out of it? There is the quadratic equation that I know I struggled with multiple times in my schooling. Like, I struggled with the quadratic equation. I don't even know it. I couldn't tell you. I haven't had to help my daughter with the quadratic equation. So I haven't used it. I probably will not run into the quadratic equation until my youngest gets to the quadratic equation. Homework should be only given to the older kids. Homework should be given to the older kids, the advanced kids, the top kids, the ones that you're not going to hold back. My daughter comes home with the most worthless worksheets. It's like somebody is checking a box. A 7-year-old, a 9-year-old needs to be in school longer, doing hands-on stuff, and that's it. You hang it up and you leave it at school. The thing is that why do kids hate math? Because you give them 120 math problems to do, right? And the worksheets are nonsense. The worksheets that you're giving these kids is absolutely nonsense. Stop doing it. You're not hitting the goals. The kids are cheating. The kids are using shortcuts. The kids are sharing answers. You give a kid the sevens worksheet page, unless you're going to make the kid write out every day the sevens from 7 times 0 to 7 times 15. And by the way, if we're going to talk about math, my mom's generation had to learn up to 15 by 15. I had to learn up to 12 by 12. My daughter only has to learn up to 9 by 9. I don't even know why we're making kids memorize times tables, because you won't have a calculator with you every day. Why are we need to evolve. It's the year 2020. We need to change how we do things. I feel like we could condense so much of the education system and then take that time to re-explain and expand things for the more focused classes, cut the general classes later on. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A 7-year-old needs to be in school longer and then not have homework. 7-year-old needs to be in school and work hard for 8 hours a day. And then when they go home, they don't bring the work home with them. Because what are we teaching kids? Are we preparing them for the world? Sure. How many jobs bring work home with them? We were teaching kids how to integrate into the factory system. But you don't take the factory work home with you. So somebody please explain. Can we please evolve schools? A high school junior, a high school senior, maybe even high school sophomores lightly should be getting term papers, research projects. And you know what else needs to stop? Group work. Group projects need to stop. Because you know what I was always tired of, and my kids have always been tired of? Getting tired of I have to be the one that carries all the weight, because we teach kids that it's a shared grade. But at what job would you ever not tell your boss that this person is completely useless and not pulling their weight and they don't need to be there? If I get asked a question at a job, I'm not going to lie. Hey, the size of your team, yeah, is it the right size? No, you can have this person back. I don't need them. Why? They don't do anything anyway. You want a kid to learn how to read? Then reward them if they read. But stop punishing kids when they don't read. What do we do when a kid hasn't done the reading assignment? We give them detention. We take away recess. We send a note home to mom and dad. Guess what? If mom and dad actually cared, mom and dad would have made sure the kid did the reading last night. The system is broken. We cannot assume that parents care. Parents are not the ones going to the school getting the education. The kid is the one going to the school getting the education. Stop calling the parents about everything. Also, classes that ask you to read half a library, you got to be more specific. What age level are you talking about there? If kids are falling behind in reading, then how do you expect? Why do we promote kids that can't read at the appropriate grade level? If you can't read at the 9th grade level, why are you being promoted to 10th grade? You can't read the 10th grade textbooks because you can only read at the 7th grade level. This is my problem. We're so afraid of offending anybody, but we don't want to change the system. You would be surprised at what happens when you have a teacher that actually cares and finds age-appropriate reading material and targets the age-appropriate reading material to the readers. My daughter's school has a program where they read a book. The books are weighted. The books are weighted. So she's in 4th grade. August, September, October, November. She's in 4th grade, 5th month. So she's in 4.5. My youngest daughter's reading at the 9-10 level, the 9th grade, 10th grade level. She loves to read. She devours books. Found out she's bored in school because the books are all beneath her. You're thinking specifically of a college class that asks us to read 200 pages a week on top of other homework. Too much is too much. That's not too much. I'm sorry to tell you this. If by college, see, the problem you're talking about is if I unwrap your problem, the problem is that you're being asked to read 200 pages a week, which isn't a lot, by the way. It's 40 pages a day, and you still have your weekend. And 40 pages should take you less than 30 minutes to read. The problem is we're making it so people are going to college and they're being given appropriate level college work, but because they can't afford to go to college, they're trying to take a full course load and they're working a job so that they don't end up underwater in debt. See, that's my problem with it. Why are we sending you to college? Like a history major, 200 pages a week. I had upwards of 2,000 pages a week. I had 5 history/poli-sci courses most of my semesters. So I was reading upwards of 2,000 pages a week. Now, and that was in my 300 and my 400 level classes. Do I think that's too much? No. I think that's course appropriate work. I think in some ways we don't track students in the college program very well. And then where we have problems in colleges, like I said, one semester I'm taking 2 history, a poli-sci, a philosophy, and a biology, but I suck at biology. So I'm using all of my time and my effort and my energy trying to pass a class that I don't need. Why do I need biology 101 as a history major? Because I need to take a class to check a box. I would have preferred, instead of being told that I had to take biology 101, I would have loved it if they said, you know what, you can take biology 101 or you can take another history course. Well, I'm a history major, so I think the other history course is more appropriate to me. It's nearly impossible to be held back in elementary and high school. Right. The problem is there's only one schooling method that works if you want to keep pushing kids forward, and that's the Montessori method. Because the Montessori method doesn't group you by an age, it groups you by ability. So, and I've seen this work really, really well. My daughter Gizmo would not be with a bunch of other 9-year-olds for her reading. For her reading, she would be with high school freshmen because that's what she's reading at. But for reading time, she would go to the appropriate reading class. And then for math time, I love my daughter, but I'm always honest about my kids' abilities. My daughter would probably go with 8-year-olds for math when it came to math time. When it came to science time, she'd be with older kids. When it came to the next thing, she'd be with age-appropriate kids or younger. We don't need to track kids by a age anymore. Because you happen to be born 6 years ago, we put you into kindergarten. But if you were born 5 years ago, you can't be in kindergarten. Isn't the issue with that, if you get evaluated, you get pushed up, you could miss something important? No, because not if you design the entire curriculum appropriately. What's important that you're going to miss? See, we should not be teaching concepts. We should not be teaching concepts that you only get presented once if they're important. If they're important, they should be constantly coming around. They should be constantly repeated. They should be constantly redone. And this is part of the problem with having a 9-month school year. Anybody that's been a teacher, teacher's aide will tell you, you don't even have a 9-month school year. Because what happens is this. In about April, late April, early May, the kids and the teachers both check out. They're done. The teachers don't really give a shit. They start doing fun activities. They start cleaning their classroom. They start taking everything down. They start summing it up, because by late April, early May, you've already taken your standardized test for the year and the teachers are done. And then you have the kids come back to you in August. So May, June, July, August. 3.5 months later, those kids come back to you. Well, those kids have forgotten everything you taught them from February to April. So the first quarter of the next year is just rehashing the third and fourth quarter of the previous year. You're not making any progress. I jumped from set 3 math to set 1. I don't know if I missed anything, since set 3 was red and blue counters are positive and negative. After the first year, they looked at me and said, "Oh, you shouldn't be here." And I got put up in top set. So I'm going to say this. I have no idea what you're talking about, because wherever you do schooling, I'm not familiar with. But that seems like a problem, because if you were misclassified early, then you need to make sure that you go through all the motions. But math isn't linear. Math is modular. Math is modular in that you can teach different things at different times, right? And you can teach different things at different times and then cycle it back around. It's like you learn basic geometry, and then you need that basic geometry back in trigonometry, and then you need that basic geometry and trigonometry in physics. And that's what they tell you. But the truth of the matter is, you really don't. I don't need you to have taken geometry and trigonometry to teach you physics. The bits of geometry and trigonometry I need you to know for physics, I can teach you in the physics class. But we have these radical assumptions of what people need to know. In my opinion, the only general classes, high school, that should be required are things that you will need no matter what you do. Math that will let you do taxes, basic home economic skills, cooking eggs, pasta, things like that. Yeah, I'm getting to financial literacy. Like I said, you want a kid to read, reward them if they read. Don't punish them if they don't read. Don't penalize them if they don't read. Don't call them out in front of the class if they don't read. And if they can't read, then that kid needs to be coming to 0 hour. That kid needs remedial reading. That kid needs to be staying for 10th period for remedial reading. And everyone's like, well, that would be unfair to the kid. Hold on a second. It's unfair to the kid that we're going to make them come to school early or make them stay late because they need remedial education. So no, let's not help the kid learn how to read, and let's just keep pushing the kid through school. One of my fosters came to me with straight A's. And I had a conversation with the foster. And right from the word go, I knew something was suspicious. And I was like, there is no way that this kid, with their personal communication skills, their personal reasoning skills, the simple math money check deal, because when I have fosters, I have takens, I teach things like consumerism. I don't say, what do you need from the store? I say, you need to make a list of the things you need from the store. And then I check the list, right? Hey, you didn't put toothpaste on here. You always need deodorant. You need deodorant, toothpaste, shampoo, and then if you're a girl, you need body wash. Guys don't understand this. Guys, we use shampoo and we wash everything with the shampoo. Girls, they need body wash, and that's fine. But then you say, make a list of all your necessities. They don't put socks on the list. They don't put underwear on the list. They don't put new bras on the list. This is consumerism. This is teaching them what basic necessities are versus niceties. So I called the school the kid had transferred from, and I said, yeah, you gave this kid straight A's. They literally said, yeah, both of her moms died, so we gave her straight A's so that she didn't feel bad about herself. We gave a kid straight A's so she didn't feel bad about herself, and now the kid can't read, can't write, and can't do math. Because if I was getting straight A's for doing nothing, I would be really motivated to work harder too, right? Financial literacy. Financial literacy, you're absolutely right. Why are we not teaching kids financial literacy? In the United States, we have two tax forms. Well, we have a lot of tax forms. A whole lot. We have too many tax forms. But we have two major tax forms that a person working needs to know about. We have the W-2 and the W-4. The W-4 is the form that you fill out and give to the employer to tell the government how much additional money to take out of your check or how much withholdings to do. The W-2 is what the employer gives to you and the government so everybody knows what you made and what taxes were taken out. I'm not kidding when I say this. I've had multiple people in their life at age 20, late 20s, call me from their new job asking me how to fill out their W-4. People I know give the government extra money every week. Each week, they have the government take out extra money so that they can, and I quote, get a bigger check in May after they file their taxes. All right. The very fact that the person is giving the government the money to hold for the first is 12 months, and then the next is 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're letting the government hold on to your money, right? And then you want a bigger check in April. You should always be paying the government in the US. You should be writing the government a check in April. You want to write them a check for as little as possible, but you want to be writing the government a check in April. Because if you take the money and you put it in any sort of interest-bearing account, what it's doing is generating more money for you instead of the government holding on to it interest-free for a year. And then when you try to explain it to people, they don't get it. They don't understand. They're like, well, I don't want to owe the government money. So you'd rather have it be them hold on to your money. Now, Grumpy Old Man says, no, you want it to be as much as possible with no penalties. That's not the basic class. That's the advanced class. And he's absolutely right. But the trick is it's crawl, walk, run. If I tell you that you want to owe the government as much as possible and you don't understand the basics, you're going to call me an idiot and you're going to say, you don't know what you're talking about. I have a note here. We're living in a society that taxes the poor deeper into poverty, and the poor are getting their financial advice from TikTok. And that absolutely terrifies me, because I want to remind you that a TikToker does not care about your financial survival. They care about their financial survival. A lot of the stuff that TikTokers are saying is absolutely wrong. But what they do is they break the story out into 9 videos, right? They break the story out into 9 videos. Why? Because then what did you just do? You just watched 9 videos. You'll notice that everything I do is always in one video, unless I absolutely have to do a 2-parter for some reason. Everything I do, I put into one video because I don't want to nickel and dime you. I don't put mid-roll ads. I don't want to nickel and dime you. I want you to have access to the education. Grumpy Old Man is absolutely correct. When you get past basic tax literacy, you actually want to owe the government as much as you can without them saying you didn't pay your fair share of taxes on a quarterly basis. But the average person doesn't understand that. If you owed the government $1,000 a month in taxes, they're going to say to you, you didn't pay us enough monthly. But if you give the government $1,000 a month extra, right? Because you want that nice $12,000 check. Well, you take $1,000 in that first month and you get 2% on it, right? You get just 2% on it investing, right? That means that's going to generate you an extra $20 that year. So, especially if the taxpayer is saying, my tax refund is huge, the government is great. Exactly. See, that's the problem. I want to remind you guys of this. When you get a tax check from the government, unless it's a COVID stimulus check, unless it's something where they're giving everybody money, and they very rarely are giving you money. The West Wing has a great episode of this where they gave you money a year in advance as an economic stimulus, and then the next year you have to pay the government back. but people don't know that. Yeah, it's your money. They're giving, when you get your refund check, it's a refund check. So it's like I said, if I do this real quick, 16, 14, 12, 10, 6, or 8, 6, 4, 2. Let me add this up real quick. So that's 20, that's 40, that's 60, that's 80, that's 100, that's 200. Just simply investing the money that the government owed you would generate you $200. Simply just putting it into a flat interest-bearing account. But we don't want people to know that. We don't want people to know that. We want to keep people stupid. We want to keep people fat and happy, relying on the government. It's like I did a video on my YouTube channel. I have a video called Taxing People into Poverty. And I just had to talk about this again today on Discord with somebody. We actually live in a society, right? And people don't get this. They don't understand it. The poverty line is $13,590. $13,590. But the standard deduction is $12,950. So we expect poor people to pay taxes. And the problem is, because enough people don't understand taxes, tax liability, they don't understand it, trying to explain it to them, trying to get them motivated, trying to get them riled up, trying to organize them, trying to be at the head of the mob and saying, we got to vote in new people. You can't get the masses. You cannot get the masses angry, because the masses are like, but the government gives me a big refund check every April. No, the government doesn't give you anything in April. The government says, here you go. It's just like there was a hilarious TikTok meme that made me laugh, and the kid, it's a 16-year-old talking to the IRS. He says, hi, I'm 16 and I got my first job and I'm trying to file my taxes. Can you tell me what I owe? And the IRS says, no, we don't do that. You have to figure it out. And the 16-year-old says, but you know what I owe. Oh, yes, we know what you owe. Because if you don't give us what we know you owe us, we're going to penalize you. And then the 16-year-old says, well, why can't you just tell me so I get the number right? The answer is because we're hoping you give us more. If you've ever had to do an X, a Form X for your taxes, you know how much the government does not care about giving you back your money. You ever filed your taxes and be told it's going to be 3 to 4 weeks before you get your refund check? It's because they don't actually have the money liquid at the moment to give it to you. They got to wait for the other people. Well, they don't have to. They could, in fact, pay you, but they're waiting for the other people to pay in their taxes so that they can pay out the taxes. We're making poor people pay taxes. I don't know about you, but the first thing I would do if I was elected president is I would say to the IRS, every time the rest of the government releases a figure on what the poverty line is, you will automatically adapt the standard deduction to the new poverty line. Because I don't know, call me crazy, but I don't think poor people should be paying taxes. Why are people poor? Well, because they got educated by such an amazing world-class, top-shelf school system that hasn't been updated in 200 years. When I take my kids on vacation every October, you know what I tell the school? I tell them that I'm doing supplemental education. Why? Because I think my kids learn more from me in one weekend at Universal Studios than they learn in 6 weeks at the school building. Hey, why do we do this? Why does this cost this? Why does a $4.99 quarter pounder with cheese meal cost more in Orlando than it does in our hometown? And they're like, well, it shouldn't because it's $4.99. I said, well, what else is included? And they're like, oh, taxes. Yeah. Well, why aren't the taxes the same? Because you have local taxes. My kids are like, oh, I get it. Right? I get it. But why doesn't the school teach that? The schools are so busy about the Pythagorean theorem and the quadratic equation and, you know, the volume of a cylinder. Can anybody tell me when the last time they needed to know what the volume of a cylinder was? Because I didn't need to know what the volume of a cylinder was until I started managing fuel tanks. And after that, I needed to know what the volume of a cylinder was because it was relevant to my job. But until that point, and since that point, I've never needed to know what a volume of a cylinder is. But then you guys have seen the McDonald's, the Starbucks deals where they take the small and they pour it into the medium, and they take the medium and they pour it into the large, and they're all the same size. And if you didn't know that, there are some companies, Starbucks, where if you pour a large will fit in a small because of the way and the shape of the cups. So you're paying $2 more for no more liquid. We have a big issue in Canada where people with disabilities get a check to help them called PWD. If they get a part-time entry-level job, they can start getting taxed so much they earn less money than simply accepting their checks. Yes, we have the same problem. We have the same problem in the United States where we don't fix the problems, we create more problems. In the United States, if you're receiving Social Security, there is a program called Return to Work. If you're receiving Social Security disability insurance, there is a program called Return to Work. But you can only do it for 18 months. And if you return to work, then for every $2 you earn, they reduce your benefits by $1. But then the next year, they reduce your benefits because you worked in the previous year. I'm pretty sure that people that are trying to return to work, the last thing they need is to have to bust out an abacus to figure out what the threshold is for how much I can earn and how much I can't. One of my take-ins is a teacher. My take-in earns $4,000 too much to get any benefits. Why are benefits go no-go? If we're going to afford you up to $20,000 in benefits, why is it if you make $27,000, we give you $0? But if you make $26,000, we'll give you $20,000 in benefits. How about we fix the stupidity in the problem? How about if you make $26,000, you can get up to $20,000 in benefits. If you make $27,000, you can make $19,000. You know, if you make $28,000, you can make $18,000. There you go. You must pay taxes on up to 85% of your Social Security benefits if you file a federal tax return as an individual, and your combined income exceeds $25,000. Joint return and you and your spouse have a combined income of more than $32,000. Right. That right there is one of the major reasons why I'm stuck in a tail dive between my pension, my VA benefits, and my Social Security benefits. I would love to go back to work. But if I work too much, then they take away my benefits. We all know. I think we can all figure out from me on the gaming show, the gaming network show when I stream. I have to work for myself. I can't work for somebody else because I can't work for stupid. I can't work for, like, as you heard me say, I went off on Zetrix the other day because Zetrix is smarter than that. I go off on Zetrix not because I'm mean to Zetrix. I go off on Zetrix because one day Zetrix is going to be a millionaire. Zetrix is the kind of person has all of the boxes in the brain cave. Gonna come up with a product that makes hundreds of millions of dollars. Gibbs says in NCIS, you don't waste good. Zetrix is so good. Zetrix is going to start a business, come up with an idea, do something, gonna be a millionaire. But in order to get there, you gotta, in order to make a statue out of the marble, you gotta chop off a lot of the bad pieces. One of Zetrix's problems is communication. That's why I'm hard on Zetrix, because it's the military model. You break them down so you can build them up. Zetrix is like I consider myself really, really smart, really, really educated. Zetric's like the things he can do. I can't. What are you doing? Even when he tries to explain stuff to me, I'm like, slow down. Pretend like I'm old, because I am. But you don't waste good, man. You do not waste good. That's the other problem. There's so much wasting of good going on. We're wasting good. We're wasting good on a monumental level because we have kids going through the motions, right? We have kids going through jumping through hoops for no reason, right? We make everything complicated. We make kids take a standardized test, except for some schools, they have to take another standardized test. Why would we ever need the ACT and the SAT? Why don't we just have one college admissions test? Because if you guys don't know this, getting into a school that takes the ACT and getting into a school that takes the SAT they're completely different tests. There are schools that, there are schools that want a certain test because they don't want to change. What does a standardized test tell you about anything? All my military people will tell you, everybody takes the ASVAB to get into the military. There are some people that crush the ASVAB because they take the ASVAB test prep, and they are unteachable. They are unteachable. I was in my enlisted tech school had 6 Air Force people in it. We started off with 6 Air Force people. We ended up losing one of the Air Force people by block 3. We lost the other Air Force, one of the females by block 3, one of the females by block 4, and I had to tutor 2 of the people that were in my class repeatedly. I constantly was tutoring them. We were allowed to tutor each other until we'd seen test material. And once we'd seen test material, we could no longer tutor anybody other than our cohort, is what I'm going to call it, because it's the appropriate word. There were people that would fail out of a block and have to wait until a class came along. But what I said was, why are we wasting all this money? And I remember talking to my major, and I said to him, why are we wasting all this money? He said, what do you mean? I said, why are we using the ASVAB as the single point of determining whether people should come to this school? And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, the ASVAB doesn't tell you whether or not people are going to be able to make it through this class. He was really interested in that. He's like, what do you mean? I said, you need a mechanical and an electrical to get into this school. And he said, yes. I said, what about reading literacy? He said, what do you mean? I said, this doesn't have a reading equivalent. I said, I'll tell you, not to say anybody's names, but the 2 females that dropped out, they couldn't read. They read it probably the 8th or 9th grade level. They couldn't read. I said, how do you send a kid home? An 18-year-old kid. How do you send an 18-year-old kid back to the dorm every night and tell them to read 100 pages on electrical theory if they can't read 100? Like, the one girl, she just said to the instructor, she's like, just drop me. I can't. By the time I get home from school, go to PT, shower, go to chow, go back to my room, I can read from the moment I get back from chow until lights out, and I can't read the 100 pages. It's too complicated for me. They've since looked into some things, and they've said, yeah, it's probably not lined up right. And the last I heard, they changed the requirements for the school. I was a flight commander, and I used to get a reading result. The airmen would go through basic training, go through tech school, come to the base, and if they were struggling, you'd send them for a reading test. All the material in the military is written at the 9th grade level. You have to have a high school diploma to join the Air Force. but all your material's written at the 9th grade level. Again, we know that schooling's not doing a good job. I had a guy make it through tech school with like a 6.8 reading level. The guy couldn't get upgrade from a 3 level to a 5 level because he couldn't read the books, he couldn't pass the test. Why'd we waste the money on that young man? Imagine if we rewarded great performance and taught advanced kids on their own speed instead of cramming everyone into a one-size-fits-all class. Absolutely, man. My problem with American schooling is, you remember 15 years ago, No Child Left Behind? You know how you make sure no child gets left behind? By making sure no child gets ahead. We don't want kids to feel bad. What do I constantly say? Facts don't care about your feelings. At the end of the day, I am not saying that we need to raise a generation of people that don't have feelings. We do not want a bunch of datas running around. But we also need to stop coddling people. We need to stop coddling students. They need to be in school year-round with a couple of week-long breaks. January and February are the second semester. The month of March is an enrichment period. We're going to have yellow and red enrichment. If your kid already has both yellow and red enrichments done from previous quarters, then they don't have to come for enrichment this quarter. But if your kid doesn't have yellow or red, they need to come to yellow or red. I want to take my kid to Disney. Sure, take your kid to Disney. Your kid has yellow done. Well, that would mean the parents would have to be more involved in their kid's education. Yes, because it's not the school's job to raise your kid. It's the school's job to teach your kid. It's your job to raise your kid. At the same time, though, don't send notes home. Don't keep sending notes home to the void of dead parenting. If the parent doesn't care, the parent doesn't care. I remember when I was student teaching, I had 5 students across 4 classes that were failing. One of the kids was 18. I called home, talked to the parents. The parents were like, I don't care. He doesn't even live here. What do you mean he doesn't live here? He's 18. I kicked him out. So I made a note. My supervising teacher came in and said, have you talked to all the parents? I said, I've talked to all the parents. One of the parents doesn't care. What do you mean? The kid's 18. They kicked the kid out. A couple of weeks later, the supervising teacher said, you haven't been sending any notes home to the parent. The parent told me, I don't care. Why would I send another letter home to that parent? Because you got to follow the procedure. The procedure sucks. The policy sucks. It's not complicated. The rich don't remain the only companies that make the big bucks. If it's not complicated, the rich don't remain the only companies that make the big bucks. See, here's the problem with that theory. Number one, we know for a fact that the smart people are going to be the rich people. We know this. We know this. Even if we re-leveled all of the money, we re-leveled the economic wealth in the United States. Within 3 generations, we'd have Mark Zuckerberg's, Elon Musk's, we'd have Ted Turner's, we'd have Warren Buffett's, we'd have Vince McMahon's, who's now retired, but we'd have companies that rise up. What are you going to do? Take away all the wealth from all the companies? How's that going to work? Imagine if we rewarded great performance. I wish that we would. I wish that the reward for performance was sending kids to regional schools or regional classes that they didn't have to put up with the nonsense of being taught by a teacher that they're probably smarter than. I want to remind you guys, to be a teacher isn't hard, right? To be a teacher in my state isn't hard. Number one, you get a 4-year degree. Getting a 4-year degree is not hard. And I've said it in my class I've said it in my class. I've said it on my show many times. C's get degrees. C's get degrees. Go to school. Take 40 classes. That's what a bachelor's is. It's 40 classes. Take 40 classes. Number 2, take a basic skills test. Number 3, take a test that any school of education at any university worth its salt has already prepared you for. My basic skills test was so easy because because of what letter my last name starts with. I was in a different room than the rest of the social studies people, and then I was in the first seat. I got handed my test packet, and I was told to start, so I started, and I'm going through, and then the teacher's going through and dropping off packets for the other stuff. When the proctor, not the teacher, the proctor. When the proctor got done passing out everything, I was already done. I raised my hand. I said, "Here, this is for you. Do you have a question?" "No, I'm done." "What do you mean you're done?" I'm done." And the proctor was like, "It's a 50-minute test." I was like, "Well, I'm done. You might want to check your answers." "All right, I'm done. What do I do with this stuff?" And so I handed the stuff I handed it to the proctor. As I'm walking out, I get stopped by Illinois State Board of Education security. And they're like, "How did you finish the test so fast?" "It's a basic skills test." And I had to turn out my pockets. I had to take off my flannel. They wanted to see my arms. They wanted to see my watch. And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Well, people don't finish the test that fast. It's a basic fucking skills test. Can you conjugate a sentence? Can you do simple math?" And the scary part is there are people in my state who at the first year this basic skills test was coming out, there were people that were failing it 2 or 3 times. Can we be honest for a second? I don't think anybody that walks into a basic skills test and fails it should be given a retest sooner than a year later, because you're going to put them in front of a classroom full of kids. You're going to put them in front of a classroom full of kids and say, "Oh, yeah, by the way, we want you kids, some of you who are the top performers are smarter than this jamoke. But we want you to sit here quietly, respectfully, and just lap up all the bullshit this teacher gives you." I had a teacher in geometry who called on me, put a problem up on the board, called on me, and I went up and I solved it. And the teacher was like, "You use side angle side." "Yeah, why would I not use side angle side?" "Well, I haven't taught you that yet." And I was a smartass, as you can figure. I said, "Just because you haven't taught me something doesn't mean I don't know it." And I remember that earned me a trip down to the dean's office, and the dean, I had to go to the discipline dean because it was classroom behavior. And I went in and I said, "Can I please get a new geometry teacher?" And my dean was like, "Why?" I said, "Because apparently I can't know side angle side from grade school. Apparently I was supposed to forget side angle side." And the dean was like, "Wait, what?" And so we go back to the teacher's class, and the teacher gets called out into hall, first year teacher. And the dean says, "You sent him to my office because he used side angle side to solve the problem?" And the teacher said, "Yeah, he's being a smartass." And my dean was like, "Well, yes, it's him. He's always going to be a smartass. But was he disrespectful?" And he's like, "Yeah, he told me that he knows stuff I haven't taught him." And the dean was like, "No problem." He's like, "Jay, go get all your stuff." I got my stuff, and they walked me to my previous year math teacher who taught both. And the dean knocked on the door and was like, "Will you take Jay during this period for geometry?" And the teacher's like, "Yeah, sure." And so I went in, and people were like, "What'd you do?" And I was like, "I remembered 7th grade geometry." See, that's the problem. Teachers aren't God. And that's what a huge part of our problem in the school system is. I've had teachers, say to my kids, "You don't respect me." And my kids have been like, "You're right, I don't." I've gone up to meetings with the teachers, and see, in this particular school district, they know who I am now, so they don't try to talk down to me. But I've gone into meetings with the teachers where the teachers have said, "Well, Mr. J, what you have to understand about the education system." And my kids will always laugh, and I look at them and say, "Hey, stop." My kids will my kids will clamp down. And I'll let the teacher talk, and I'll say, that's very nice. But before we address that point, where did you get your PhD? And they're like, I don't have a PhD. Where'd you get your master's degree? They said, I don't have a master's. Are you in a master's program? No. Well, then what you have to understand about the education system is that the people you meet on a random basis are more trained and qualified than you. And I'm one of them. And that always, that always hurts their feelings. And then that's usually when I say my kid doesn't need to be in your class. Because if this is your attitude towards the world, they have to respect you. See, I see what Lord Lard said. Respect is earned, not expected. There's two types of respect. There's positional authority and there's earned respect. You have to be respectful to an elder. You have to be respectful. You don't have to respect them. You have to be respectful. Your behavior needs to reflect a minimum level of respect. If the teacher's talking, you're not. That's basic respect. The person gets a certain amount of respect from positional authority. I'm speaking, you're not. And that's going to teach you that's a behavior you need to learn. People need to learn that behavior to be successful in the work world. You may not like this, but your boss is your boss, regardless. Your boss is your boss, regardless. Yeah, you need to show deference to the position, not the person. It's like Major Winters in Band of Brothers. When Captain Sobel tries to pass him and doesn't salute him, he says, we salute the rank, not the man. I had this problem because I was older when I went into the military. I was older when I became an officer. I actually had to have a sit-down conversation like, can we have a amnesty moment? And my captain she's like, sure. I said, can I have an amnesty meeting? And she's like, yeah. I went in and I said, okay, I want to be able to speak to you as a human without getting in trouble in my career. And she said, okay. I said, you need to please stop telling me how the military works. And she kind of looked at me and she's like, well, what do you mean? I said, number one, this is your second assignment. I said, number two, I know you've only been a captain for like 4 months. I know they held you at your old base until you promoted to captain, and then you came here and nobody's ever made a big deal about how that you haven't been a captain very long. And she's like, okay. She's like, and then she says, well, how do you know that? I said, because I saw your transfer order from the MAGCOM. I knew that you were a lieutenant and then you were coming here, and I was one of the people that signed off on the routing order to hold you in place until you promoted. I said, please stop telling me how the military works, because I've been in the military for 7 years. You've been in the military for 4. Please stop telling me the basic shit about how the military works. And she kind of was like, okay. And I said, and please realize, if you want to know my background, I've been at the command that we report to for the last 3 years. There's nothing you're going to tell me about how the command works that I don't already know, because you're running the playbook that I helped write. And so she called up to the command, and about a week later, she called me back to her office. She's like, I apologize. I was treating you like a brand new second lieutenant. I forgot that you've been in the military for 7 years. You were in E6. You know your way around the command. You know your way around AMC, Air Mobility Command. She's like, I apologize. A couple of months later, or about 2 years later, we got a new commander, full commander. He came in, and it was funny because he met me, and he had this ding ding light bulb above his head, and he was like, I know you from somewhere. And I'm like, uh-oh. And so I started panicking. And then a couple of days later, he's like, I know where I know your voice from. I said, what's that? He's like, your voice is still on the voicemail in the headquarters box. I said, oh, yes, sir. He was cool about it. He sat me down. He's like, hey, I'd like to ask you some questions about the MAGCOM, this, that. He's like, things going on. You respect. Teachers need to understand, especially first year through third year teachers need to understand that You're not that much more advanced than the kids you're teaching. You've been to college. Okay. There was a teacher I had. He was a first year teacher. He was my physics teacher, my first period teacher. And he used to go into the same diner that I would go into. I got to, you guys know that I was in college and high school at the same time, which was kind of a trip. I would get up early, go to a diner, eat breakfast, because most of the high school kids didn't go into the diner because diners cost money. They just eat at the school where they get it for like $1. And he came in one morning and he saw me with a big stack of textbooks, and I was working on something. He's like, "What are you working on?" I said, "Oh, I'm working on a Psych 101 paper." He's like, "Psych 101?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm in Psych 101 on Tuesday nights up at the university." And he's like, "But you never do the homework for my class." And I kind of, clicked the pen. I said, "No offense, I don't care about your class. Your class isn't going to help me with my career goals. And I can do the work. I hate busy work. I hate busy work." He's like, "Well, why do you call it busy work?" And I pulled out my physics textbook. I opened it up. I took a napkin and I did the problem really quick, and I handed it to him. I said, "I can do this like that. You're not teaching me anything because I've already been through the engineering track." I said, "So you're teaching me stuff that I learned 2 years ago." And he was a cool teacher. He said, "Why don't I just give you a seat in the back of the classroom?" He's like, "Because you're clearly working on something else that's more important to you. Why don't I give you a seat in the back of the classroom and you be adult enough to pay attention when I'm teaching something you don't know?" And I was like, that's an amazing deal. Thank you. And we talked periodically. And I was like, "You are probably my favorite teacher." I said, "Because you treat me like a person. You're treating me like a person. Why do I have to do 20 problems of physics every night for busy work?" Here you go. It's on a napkin. So he was cool about it. As long as my test grades were A's, he waived all the homework for me. That's what teachers need to do. Education needs to be individualized. Prince EA has a great video on this topic. It's called "I Just Sued the School System." If a doctor prescribed the same medication for all of his patients, the results would be catastrophic and the doctor would get sued. I have a little Crestor right here. Got a little Crestor. I got a little cholesterol problem, and I need it for my cholesterol, but you don't need it. But why doesn't he just give it to you? Because if it's good for treating Jay's cholesterol, it'll be good for your cholesterol too, right? No, you can't just take all these pills, right, and just start giving them to people. You got to give them to the right people. So why is it we know this as a society? We know that medicine and healthcare needs to be custom tailored, right? We know that some people need to get their gallbladder removed. Some people need to get their appendix removed. Some people need to get their spleen removed. Why don't we just remove them all when you're a baby? You don't need them, right? No, because even though they're useless organs, we find that people that have them removed have different health conditions. We don't start removing things just because we can. Is your gallbladder going bad? Okay, we'll remove it. Is your appendix going to rupture? We'll remove it. So why do we treat education as a one-size-fits-all? Grumpy Old Man says instead of cramming everybody into a one-size-fits-all class. And did you guys ever know, or some of you may not remember this, some of you probably didn't have tracking. Some countries don't do tracking. I remember loving science, being a big science nerd. I love science. But I remember being in the low math class. I was in the low math class, so I was automatically in the low science class. And I went to the teacher and I said, "Wait a minute, hold up. Why is math the deciding factor?" And they said, "Well, we only have 2 math classes a day. We have high math and low math." Okay. So when I'm teaching high math, the science teacher's teaching high science or low science. When I'm teaching low math, The science teacher's teaching high science. You can't be in two places at once. And I said, well, you know what the problem here is that you're killing people's hopes and dreams because I want to do high science, but I want to do low math. I had a teacher that sent home work to submit, but stated explicitly it wasn't worth any marks, so no one ever submitted them to punish people for not doing the homework. Made them worth 10% of the grade in the second semester. Right. My kid gets this all the time. My kid gets it all the time where my kid gets, this homework is optional. This homework is optional. So I look at my kid and I'm like, do you want to do it? And my kid's like, no. And I'm like, okay. Now, sometimes she gets mad at me. Gizmo, I'll be like, is it times tables? Yeah, do it. But it's shut up and do it. Because you don't know your times tables. So dad's going to tell you to shut up and do it. But you send home optional work. I don't understand optional work. Optional for who? So, it's like, if you guys have ever been in a class that's graded on the bell curve, bell curve grading is great if you're one of the smartest kids. A lot of my classes in my university were done on the bell curve. If there were 5 assignments and you had 4 A's and nobody else in the class had 3 A's, you didn't even need to do the last assignment. And so I had a professor call me and he's like, hey, I didn't get your last paper. I said, I'm not doing it. He's like, you have to do it. Why? He's like, because it'll affect your grade. Yeah, it'll be A, F, which will still give me an A average because it's a bell curve. Nobody else had enough points. Not enough people had enough points to take my A away from me. He's like, how'd you figure? I was like, because I plotted everybody on 4 grades, and then I figured out what the grades would be if all the whatever 17 people got hundreds and I got a 0, and I know I'm right there. And he's like, you could have probably done the assignment faster than figuring this out. I was like, yeah, but it was fun to figure this out. I don't want to write another paper on urban politics. And that guy was cool and funny. I went to a really small university, really small university. I think there was a total of 8 professors for the history and political science department. One of the poli-sci teachers taught history and poli-sci. One only taught history. One only taught poli-sci. One taught both. So I had the same guy for about 6 or 7 classes. And I wrote a paper in a 300 level class. 15-page paper, indexes, interviews, citations, this, that, the other. And then as chance would have it, I needed to take a lower version of the same course. It was like I had already taken advanced urban politics, advanced political theory and urban political development. And then he had a 200 level version of the course called urban politics. And so I had to take the class because I needed credits. I needed chowder for my 120. I took the class and he kind of laughed. He's like, what are you doing in here? I was like, I need the class. And after the class, I walked up to him. I said, so, about the paper. And he's like, you're not even doing the paper. I said, okay. And so somebody heard him say that to me and they're like, why doesn't he have to write the paper? Well, because why am I going to make him write a 5-page paper on the same thing he already has a 15-page paper on? There's no point. He was cool. And I don't know why teachers are afraid to be cool. Why are teachers so concerned that this theory that teachers can't be friendly? You got it. I have to be mean. You have to be afraid of the school system. No, I don't get down with that. I was never like that to my students. I will tell you, I had 2 chuckleheads in all my years of teaching. I had 2 chuckleheads. One kid I demoted. I demoted the kid. I talked to the principal and all the teachers ahead of time because the kid was so bad behaved. I demoted the kid, and I demoted him for 4 days. He was a 7th grader. I put him back in 6th grade. We kind of staged it. We kind of had a production. The kid's behavior was so bad that I said, you know what? Get out of my classroom. If you can get the 8th grade teacher to take you, you can graduate early. If she won't take you, go down to the 6th grade teacher and see if he'll take you. It was all planned. I kicked the kid out. He goes to the 8th grade teacher. 8th grade teacher's like, nah, I'm not taking you. He goes down to the 6th grade teacher. 6th grade teacher takes him, send him down. He follows a 6th grade schedule for the rest of the week. And on Friday, I had a parent-teacher conference with him and his parents. And I said, look, I don't want to give up on your kid, but your kid's behavior is so poor. Your kid's bad behavior is detracting from my ability to educate all the other students. So one of two things needs to happen. Your son needs to stop acting this way so that I can teach the other 29 students I have, or you need to take your kid to another school. Put him in another 7th grade. And the father kind of looked at me and looked at the kid and looked at me and said, well, how bad's his behavior? I said, I won't tell you how bad his behavior is because I'm afraid for his life if I do. But I don't need him to be punished for the back behavior. I just need Monday morning to be a brand new day. I need Monday morning for him to be a class leader. He's smarter than most of his peers. I understand he's bored. It's my first year teaching. I'm doing my best to give him supplemental material, but I can't handle his outbursts, his behavior, his sarcasm. I can't handle it. I can handle it, but to the detriment of the peers, I won't allow. Monday morning, that kid came in, a whole new boy, a whole new young man. Came into my class, sat down, had done the reading, which he always had, but he wasn't making sarcastic comments. I was really proud of him because one of the kids that was struggling was trying to get some thoughts out, and he kind of turned, he looked, he says, are you trying to say da-da-da? He wasn't being condescending. He was a good kid. That school closed that year. And all of my students ended up dispersed. He ended up at a new 8th grade, did really well. I heard about him often. He came to my new school because I was teaching 8th grade, and he asked for a letter of recommendation. I was happy to give it. Throughout high school, the kid contacted me pretty often. He sent me emails. I could clearly tell that he was getting angry with me because I hadn't answered him, but right after his 8th grade year, I went into basic training in tech school. So I didn't really get back to a computer. And I said, hey, sorry, I've been away at the military. Really good. You got into a good school, work hard. Periodically, he'd send me a message, needed help with something. I was always happy to help him. Kid ended up following in my footsteps, going to college and going into the military. Years later, like 10 years later, he said, if you hadn't yanked my chain like that, I probably would have been like my older brothers. What are your older brothers doing? Oh, they're gangbangers. From gangbanger to military officer. One teacher can make a big difference in a kid's life. In my country, from age 6 to 10, we learn our language and math, some art, music, and PT. 10 to 13, we learn basics in all subjects. From 14 to 18, we have entry exams for high school. Those are separated by theme. Where you end up, if you stop learning the side stuff, like my friend had 1 to 2 hours per week of every subject, and I was science, option, biology, and chemistry, and I had 20 hours per week. Yeah, but I mean, you're probably smarter than all of your peers. Massive amounts of my peers are doctors now. With this way of system, you need to know what you want to do with your life at 13. Okay, now I get to the point. That is why I say, I make the comments like for Billy the Motorhead. There are kids at 13 who know what they want to do with the rest of their life. There are kids at 13 that know what they want to do. Those kids should be allowed to do what they want to do. Those kids should not be forced to do the churn, right? They should not be required to do the churn. For everybody else that doesn't know, I mean, if I say to you at 5, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm going to get all princess, dragon killer, streamer, all these things. If I ask at age 5 what you want to be, I'm going to get a wide variety of things. But why don't we write that down? Why don't we write that into the kid's file? Age 5 wants to be this. So you ask the kid again at age 10, what do you want to be when you grow up? You start to get some more serious answers, right? But you might still get some that are out there. But you write it down. Well, if Emily wanted to be a doctor at 5 and Emily still wants to be a doctor at 10, wow, that's 5 years of the kid's life. But it's not just 5 years of the kid's life. Really, that's 100% of their school. Nothing's ever changed. Well, why don't we look at Emily and say, okay, well, Emily's 10 now. We've got some standardized test scores. We've got some performance data. We got some metrics. Why don't we have a personalized sit down with Emily's parents? Remember, I talked about changing the semesters so we have enrichment periods. Is age 10 too young to start learning anatomy and physiology? Is age 10 too young to learn first aid? Maybe Emily at age 10 during one of our enrichment periods gets to sit with the older kids who want to be doctors, but I don't think that a 10-year-old is incapable of sitting into a presentation about medicine. Maybe Emily finds out that stabbing people is something she may not want to do. But what did we hurt? Who did we hurt? What detriment did we subject that child to? They already do parents' evenings, so it's not too much more work to add that into wants to be. Here's the thing. Why are school districts, why are teachers so low paid? Why do teachers and police officers not have the exact same pay scale? I know people say we pay doctors. Unfortunately, doctors are paid for the years they spend in med school. But why are teachers and police officers not paid the same? They're both civil servants. They're both, public servants. Why are public defenders, teachers and police officers, firefighters, firefighter EMTs, not private company, but firefighter EMTs, why are they not all paid roughly the same? Because maybe instead of needing 2,000 police officers in a metropolis area, maybe if we invested some of that money into the teachers, then some of the kids wouldn't grow up to be criminals. Maybe if you give kids opportunities to grow up into something other than destitute, poor, failure, maybe if we do all of that, we won't need 2,000 police officers. Maybe we can cut back to 1,900 and then 1,800 and then 1,700 because we don't need as many cops. I would love to live in a world where we don't need to have 35 police officers in a small town. But unfortunately, we live in a world where people do meth, people cook meth, people steal, people do drugs, people break into houses. So we need police officers. Police officers are not a proactive source. Police officers are a reactionary force. It all ties back to school reform. There is nothing we want to change about the world that we can't change by changing the school system. You want world peace? The U.S. is going to have a way better school system if you want world peace. Look at our politicians. Some of our politicians, I am surprised that they can get out of bed and feed themselves. I saw an article, and I don't know what next week's I don't know what next week's show is going to be on, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is under investigation for a possible ethics violation. Okay, I would like to know why we're going to turn around and we're going to say that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is under investigation for possible ethics violation when she wore a dress that said tax the rich. Conservative groups have filed 2 ethics complaints against her after she attended the Met Gala, claiming her gown was an impermissible gift. You're upset that an outspoken, wants to change go-getter got a gift of a dress that says tax the rich. So, is that really what our government's about now? You guys remember, if you're older, because a lot of you are, if you're older Americans, do you remember the Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire, Barry Bonds hitting too many home runs? So there was a congressional committee to investigate steroid use in baseball. I am not saying that we shouldn't look out for the all-American pastime. But why does it take a congressional panel to look into whether or not Major League Baseball has a steroids problem? And even if Major League Baseball does have a steroids problem, why is this so concerning for Congress? I would like to remind people that the day before 9/11, the Secretary of Defense had released that we were missing $3.6 trillion. Over the years of a period of investigation, the U.S. military had lost $3.6 trillion. And then 9/11 happens, and we do the 3 Carmani, and we start moving the card. We hide the lady, and now all of a sudden people forget about that. We elect representatives, senators, presidents. Shit, let's be honest for a second. This is a country that's saying that we are in major trouble. But look at the last years of our political system. We elected an actor who, between Reaganomics and voodoo economics, completely fucked up the country's, for 20 years, its future. We elected Bill Clinton. We elected Donald Trump. And we elected Sleepy Joe Biden. That should tell you something about the education level of, number 1, our entire political system, and number 2, our voters. You ask the average voter why they voted, they can't tell you why they voted. They voted because they like that Donald Trump is arrogant, or they voted for Donald Trump because it's not Hillary Clinton. Or they voted for Hillary Clinton because we can't let the orange Cheeto poof get into office. Whatever happened to teaching kids, like, and I say this and it's a travesty. I don't even know if I'm right or left anymore. I don't know if I'm right wing or left wing, because I don't know what they stand for anymore. And when people tell me you're a leftist, which is funny because I get people that yell at me for being both on the right and the left, and I say I like to introduce them to each other. I'll invite them both. Like when I get derogatory discords about how I'm too far on the left or too far on the right, I'll invite both of those people into a conversation. I'll be like, since I don't understand what the hell you're trying to say about me, you two have an argument about me. And then they get confused. And I was like, well, wait a minute. You want to say I'm on the left and they want to say I'm on the right. So what am I, in the middle? There's certain freedoms that I believe in. And, you know, this is the sad part. Most people, the amendments, they know some of them. They know some of them. The ones that they know, they're the ones that are always, you know, getting put in your face, right? The First Amendment, right? The First Amendment. Okay. The Second Amendment. I gotcha. Let me ask you this. Number 3? Without looking it up, number 3? Oh, that'd be quartering of soldiers. Number 4 is search and seizure. Number 5 is rights in a criminal case. Number 6 is your right to fire trial. What about number 7? What about number 7? What about number 8? 8, by the way, is your bail. 9 is the rights retained by the people. And 10 is states' rights. Right? So the funny part is most people are able to quote about half of the Bill of Rights. Most Americans, by the way, can't tell you any of the 30 human rights. And yet we're doing a good job educating our kids, right? The Ninth Amendment. The enumerations in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So the Ninth Amendment says just because we've given you this list of rights, that doesn't mean you don't have other inalienable rights. Most people don't know that. And then people don't know the 30 human rights. There's a list of 30 basic human rights. And when you look them up, the 30 basic human rights, all human beings are free and equal. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. We can't say that anymore. We didn't gender norm it. Let's see. You wore a bad dress. We must focus on that. Not kids are failing in schools and turning to violence. They're both terrible. Politics in general are polarized shit fest, so I couldn't say where I fall. Yeah. Do you guys know these? Like, do you guys know the 30 basic human rights? Because if you don't, I will put it in both chats. Oh, it puts it in both chats for me. Perfect. These are the 30 basic human rights. No discrimination. Everyone is entitled. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other statuses. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of political, jurisdictional, or international status of country or territory to which a person belongs. Okay. I love it. I love it. Right to life. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. No one shall be subject to torture or to cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. I want to talk about that one for a second because it fits in to this. We say no one should be subject to torture. What about terrorists? Without going too far into the social contract, John Locke, Rousseau, Hobbes, without going too far into any of those, what if you absolutely positively need to extract information from a terrorist? When are you going to say that no torture is allowed? Because I don't play buzzword bingo. Enhanced interrogation techniques are torture. There's no difference between torture and enhanced interrogation techniques. At the end of the day, it's kind of like pay to win, pay to ... We're all agreeing it's pay to. Now we're just quibbling over the details. But let me ask you this. If there is a dirty bomb in the United States, somewhere, there is in this country, there is a dirty bomb and it's going to kill 30 million Americans. And they call Jay up and they say, we got 6 prisoners. And one or more of them know the location of the bomb. Well, what am I allowed to do? Whatever it takes. The movie Unthinkable with Samuel L. Jackson. You're allowed to do whatever it takes. Oh, whatever it takes, huh? Are you sure? I'm allowed to do whatever it takes. Yes. Torture? We'd prefer if you didn't. Oh, well, then don't bind my hands. Right? Don't bind my hands. I'm allowed to do anything I need to get that information? Sure. You know how you're going to get that information really quickly? You walk into the room, you take one of them, you string them up from the ceiling, and you do something unspeakable to them. And then you look at them and be like, I just want to let you know, I haven't even asked you a question yet. And I'm willing to do this before I even ask a question. I think it's great. I think it's amazing. I think it's awesome that we want to say stuff like no torture, inhumane treatment. But you're all about no torture and inhumane treatment until such a time as you need to use interrogation techniques. Yeah, oh, well, we got the 6 guys and there's a dirty bomb somewhere in the country going to kill 30 million Americans. Then it's a trade-off between one's right to life and the other's right to not get tortured. There you go. Ding, ding, ding. You figured it out. You figured it out. Number 3 is everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. Number 5 is no torture. I am all about writing a set of documents that make sense, but you cannot write things in contradiction to each other because now it's an economy of scale. Okay. Mr. Beast just asked the question the other day on his Twitter. Would you accept $10,000 from me, but if by doing so, some random person on the planet died? You know what was really scary about that? The last time I checked the poll, it was almost 50-50. It was almost 50-50. 50% of the people responding said they would take $10,000 if some random person on the planet died. That tells you everything you need to know about people. That tells you everything you need to know about human rights, inequality, because those people aren't thinking equal about you. I don't believe that anybody wants to listen to what Morgan Freeman said. What do we still teach kids in school? Racism. We're teaching kids to be racist. The school system perpetuates the cycle of racism. You're all like, wait, what? Okay. We have Black History Month. We have Hispanic History Month. We have Women History Month. Where's White History Month? And someone's gonna say, well, the rest of it. I said, well, by the time you start chopping out all the Pacific Islander appreciation months and this, that, and the other, we're the white people, right? The random person could be your own significant other. Yeah, exactly. That's just history, right? Yeah, that's the thing. White people history month is just history. Irish people get a day. Here's Morgan Freeman. This has got to be 30 years ago. I remember seeing this. Let me see if I can get the I don't remember when this was, but Morgan Freeman has said in an interview with Mike Wallace, I don't know when it was, but he said the way you stop racism is to stop talking about it. Morgan Freeman said, I'm gonna ask you to stop referring to me as a black man, and I'm gonna stop referring to you as a white man. And so when you say that, if I say that as a white person, people get the hammer and the nails out, and they're getting ready to put me up on a cross and crucify me because I said, let's stop talking about racism. Let's stop talking about it. Let's stop making everything about racism. You're a man. I'm a man. You're a woman. I'm a man. You're a non-binary female shell. You're a non-binary male shell. And this one of these days we can do this as a topic. I don't want to dive into it for this one, but you are you. I am me. Period. Did you guys know that racism in its current form didn't exist before the late early 1800s? Or early 1700s, I should say. That is, racism in its current form didn't exist. It started to exist because the rich, the aristocracy in the United States, realized that Irish indentured servants and English indentured servants looked more like black slaves than the white aristocracy. That's why they started the race war, is really what they did. I think that you should be more concerned with people who share your beliefs and your lifestyle than caring about the color of their skin. Because if you're poor and they're poor, you're unified and poor. I think you're more unified and poor than you are unified in skin color. I agree. I'm especially concerned about the left perpetuating racism and everything being racist. I'm starting calling those people out as racists. It's not just the left that does that, though. Yeah, TK, here's the problem. You said the left did it. Why are you being decisive? You said the left doing it. The right does it too. Everybody does it. Just think about how quickly you could change your statement. I agree. I'm concerned about any political group that perpetuates racism. I will call out anybody who perpetuates the system of racism. Doesn't matter if they're the left or the right. Doesn't matter if they're the Democrats or the Republicans. Doesn't matter if they come from the House of the Lords or the House of the Commons. Doesn't matter where they come from. If you are perpetuating racism, I'm going to call you out as perpetuating racism. Period. You're not the fastest black man on the planet. You're the fastest man on the planet. You have BET, Black Entertainment Television. Could you imagine the uproar if somebody put WET out, White Entertainment Television? I'm so tired of people subclassifying. You don't want to be called a stewardess because it's condescending. You want to be called a flight attendant. So, okay, I'm okay with that. You guys remember the movie Falling Down with Michael Douglas? You got the really racist German neo-Nazi. He says to the police officer, he's like, why are you guys officers and not officer S's? Like stewardess. Well, you are a postal worker. You're no longer a mailman. You're a postal worker. You're not a stewardess or a steward. You're a flight attendant. You're a pilot. But then what about actors and actresses? What about that? Why do we perpetuate a system of racism and sexism? Well, because we have to a little bit. We have to a little bit. We can't we can't just say we're going to have women compete in men's sports. They'll get destroyed. They'll get decimated. Will all of them? No. Will most of them? Yes. We have to have some distinctions. Actor and actress. I think we can all agree that there's no sexism involved in when we say actor or actress. We're referring to, are you portraying a male or portraying a female? Right? Now, I know that some people are going to say, well, what about the non-binary people? Sure, they're all actors. I agree, they're all actors, but I don't personally see a problem having a male category and a female category. Until then, now we come across as well, what about non-binaries? And there's got to be people that are smarter than me that are going to try to figure that out. But at the same time, actors and actresses are being put into categories by gender. So I saw a form that asked for gender assigned at birth. That was a good way around it. I mean, truthfully, that's why I say the phrase non-binary female shell, non-binary male shell. I understand that you don't want to be identified as your pronouns. You want to be a they, them. Fine. But we need to take a step to, does it matter? Sure, it matters. I don't use gender-specific pronouns. Okay. But in this case, I need to know your biological sex. I need to know what your genes, what your genome, what your DNA says you are. Why? For whatever reason. There's medical reasons. I need to know that. there is a certain time and a certain place that somebody's race is important. The TV show House has a good scene for this. Omar, the actor Omar, he's in a scene, and the black patient doesn't want the medicine that the black doctor is giving him. He goes back the next day and he sees House and he says, I don't want the medicine for black people. I want the same medicine the white people get. And House writes him a prescription. He says, I'll give you the same medicine I'd give a white patient, but you're going to be dead because it's not going to do what you need. Because African Americans have, and he goes off and says, African Americans have all these characteristics. He says, it's not a matter of being the medicine for the white people or being medicine for the black people. It's medicine for you and your condition. That's sometimes race, sometimes gender, sometimes sex. Sex and gender has become so convoluted, being used interchangeably, right? Sometimes you need to know what somebody is so you can give them the right treatment. For example, I go in for treatment and they're going to prescribe me Crestor. What was the first question my doctor asked me when he was assigning me Crestor? Do you drink? Well, I'm Irish. And he says, do you drink? No. Are you an alcoholic? No. Why would he ask me that? I don't know. Because Irish people, non-stereotypically, Irish people are more predominant to have the gene. You ask the question twice because sometimes people will change their answer and then it puts a big ta-da on the doctor's, Are you an alcoholic? No, I'm a drunk. Wait, what? Sometimes you got to ask the questions. And then my doctor and I are cool. It's like, why are you asking me? He's like, because this will destroy your liver. If you're still drinking, I will put you on a different medicine. If you still want to be able to drink, I will put you on a different medicine. This is the most effective medicine for everything I know about you. But if you're still going to drink, I'm going to put you on a different medicine because it's going to be more effective and not destroy your liver. Is this the most effective medicine? Yeah. The trade-off is I don't drink? Yeah, I'll take the medicine. Just don't assume I'm intentionally being difficult because I use traditional pronouns. Yeah, exactly. It's also one of the things that annoys me with qualified rights, women's rights, black rights, LGBT rights, all should be formulated at a level of human rights. Rights shouldn't be a box where white people get box A and black people get box B. No, you're absolutely right. But as I said, and maybe one of these days we'll go through the human rights and we'll see how many contradictions there are. Because the human rights, as I listed, have a lot of contradictions. And that's a problem. When you have basic human rights, when you have 30 basic human rights, they're no longer basic. Everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and to protections against unemployment. Everyone without any discrimination has the right to equal pay for equal work. Everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for the protection of his interests. Why? If you've said my basic right is that I get fair pay for fair work, or equal pay for equal work, right? Equal pay for equal work. Then, why do you need a trade union? Because if it's a basic human right, then some government organization should be enforcing it. Real quick story on that. I had a tech team. I was the deputy director for technical assistance for the Air Force Petroleum Agency. So outside of my door, I had the 6 best guys in the fucking world for each of their specialties: cryogenics, lab operations, water refuel management, filtration issues, tank quality issues, and then my jack of all trades guy in the front. We had this issue come up, and he told me a story. And he said he hated when small females would get assigned to water refuel maintenance. And I said, well, why is that? That's kind of sexist. And he said, it's not sexist at all. And he said, well, we can go do a demonstration. And I said, I'd love to see this demonstration because we had to reassign like the weight, height categories, what you could lift, everything. So we go out and we go over to the facility, and he grabs a really, really small female. And he hands her this wrench, and he lifts it one-handed. He's a big swelter. He's like 6'6". He's a swell turkey. He literally has this wrench, and he goes like this with it, and he hands it to her. And she tries to take it with two hands, and it falls right to the floor. Thong. Surprised it didn't crack the concrete. He's like, what you need to do is you need to get that wrench right there on that bolt up there. And she's sitting there and she's trying to figure, there's no way, it's not going to happen. So he says, okay. He reaches down with one hand, picks up this wrench, other hand opens it up, puts it on the bolt, like high. Like he's got it so that it's like parallel, like 90 degree to the deck. He tightens it up. He says to the girl, loosen that bolt. And she jumps up there. She's hanging off the wrench. She's pulling it. She can't move it. And I said, I've seen everything I need to see. So I go back and we're rewriting the qualifications for the job position. And then I faced opposition. And they say, you're making a job less accessible to females. I said, I'm not making the job less accessible to females because I don't care if a 5'6" Mexican or a 5'6" Irishman or a 5'6" Korean or Chinese or Indian or African. I don't care. If somebody's 5'6" and 92 pounds soaking wet with bricks in their pocket needs to break away that bolt, it's not going to happen. They don't have the body mass to do it. If we have these things at a height of 6 foot, then you need to be able to exert X number of pounds per square inch at this height above your head. My job required the with K level strength rating at the time. I needed that you go into this room and they've got like basically a chest press machine, but you gotta go down on the ground and you gotta get it up to chest level, and then you gotta adjust and you gotta put it up to a certain level. Well, if you have that strength rating code, they move the pin and they set it to the weight. And if you can't get the weight up, you don't get the job, right? I don't think that's being sexist, and I don't think that's not being accommodating. I think it's a matter of you physically lack the ability to do the job. If you're 92 pounds and you're a linebacker and you can tackle people, God bless you, be a 92-pound linebacker. But I'm pretty much thinking that the 200-pound running back is going to run over you. It's like, have you seen the difference in ability to tackle a door down as a firefighter between men and women? Yes, and at the same time, I'm not saying that women can't be firefighters. I'm saying the standard is you have to be able to carry a body and do this. If you're born a female and you can do that, great. If you're born a male and you can do it, great. If you're born a male and want to become a female and you can still do it, great. If you're born a female and you become a male and you can still do it, great. I don't care about that. I don't care about what's in your pants. I don't care about who you love. I don't care about who you take home. I don't care about any of that shit. I care about the fact that when I'm in a burning building, can you get my ass out of that burning building? I'm unconscious. My office catches on fire. You all call 911. They get to my house. I do not want somebody coming up to save me who can't deadlift a 215-pound fat man onto their shoulder and get me down the stairs. That's all I care about. I think next week we might do gender equality. It sounds like the evolution of this has moved to next week. We're going to do some gender equality. I think that is going to be a good fit for our evolution. I do want to remind you guys, this show is not a run-on show. This is a 2-hour segment. For those of you that didn't see it, it's on both. You'll notice that the icons in the chat box have a Twitch icon next to them or a YouTube icon. So if I say hello, it's going to pop over like 20 seconds from now because YouTube is slow. There you go. If I'm on YouTube, it'll put the YouTube icon. If it's on Twitch, Twitch is instantaneous. It'll have that. So if you guys like watching on YouTube, you can do that. If you like watching on Twitch, you can do that. These will be going on to Spotify as video episodes. You can watch them as audio episodes as well. With that said, I am going to go cook some amazing HelloFresh food for my wife and me. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to be on the gaming channel playing Harvestella. So I'll be back in a couple of hours. You guys take care. I will see you next week. I wrote gender equality down in the book. That's probably what we're going to do. We'll talk about that next week. I'll see you then.